Today, I want to keep a potentially complicated topic as simple as possible, and I want to really lay a foundation for church polity, or in other words, structure. There are many different ways to structure a church, and the way to do it is really an important topic. But before, I really want to take this a question deeper, one step backwards before we can even get to what kind of polity. A question that I have often heard argued and believe must be answered first, okay? So should the church even have structure in the first place is what I want to talk about. And we'll start with the story. I started a small Bible study with two different guys that ended up growing to over 30 relatively quickly, and things were getting a bit disorganized or getting a bit chaotic. So I met with the original three and discussed implementing more structure on our calls. And one of the guys argued against it because he believed that structure actually dampens the Holy Spirit's ability to work. And I'm gonna be honest, I thought that was a valid question to ask. So instead of debating opinions on it, let's take it to the Word to see what the Bible actually says. But just to start, the Bible's way too big and I have way too little time right now, so to really give this question as much depth as it deserves, but I'm going to try with just a brief section here, and I can't think of a better section to pick than to just start with the start. Genesis 1, 2, and 3 really sets the tone for almost every major biblical theme that riffs through the rest of the Bible. And structure, I believe, is actually laid out here, both in its positive and negative forms, but ultimately gives us a strong argument in favor of having structure. So we'll start with Genesis 1, 1 and 2. And it reads, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water." I absolutely love this. The greatest miracle of all, God just creates. It's fantastic. And he creates the heavens and the earth was without form and void. There was no structure to it. Darkness was over the face of the deep, yet God's Spirit was hovering over the face of the waters. And this is important that I want to stop here. It really sets up the rest of the chapter and also a major theme that riffs through the rest of the biblical story. Water often represents chaos. And God then uses water as an example of his authority. So a couple examples of this to help you wrap your head around it would be when God parts the Red Sea and when Jesus calms the storm. Structure, okay? Then in verses 3 through 23, God creates different things, each on different days, for 5 straight days. Many times in the Bible, it doesn't blatantly tell us if something is good or evil. The story makes us keep reading and put the pieces together for ourselves to find out. And I want to note here that this isn't the case for this section. God very clearly tells us that the structure he has put in place, up to this point at least, is good. And as we keep going, verses 24 and 25 get to the 6th day where God creates the beasts of the earth. And then starting on verse 26, things start to change when God creates man. Notice, okay, how up to this point, God has been the one forming everything. This is the foundation right here for many arguments against creating church structure. What I mean, when God creates structure, it's good. But when humans create structure, it is a power grab or oftentimes detrimental to God's will. And I don't disagree with the possibility of this, but I want to keep reading to try to really flesh out if that's a valid argument against it. So in Genesis 1, 26 through 28, it reads, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.' So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.'" I believe this section right before the fall of man is a sufficient argument for human structure even in the midst of what's about to go really wrong in the next couple chapters. And in this section, God gives humans dominion over his creation, to rule his creation in a way that he's already done. Then in chapter 3, we actually go and get to the fall, what I was talking about. The fall shows us the potential detriment human beings have of having dominion over creation. And humans aren't perfect, but I don't believe the potential of something happening or even the past actuality of it happening is sufficient in and of itself for making that thing untrue or wrong, okay? So the question is not, should we have structure? I believe that's made obvious by Genesis 1, 2, and 3. The question then is, how do humans create structure in a way that not only glorifies God, but also helps fulfill the Great Commission that Jesus has given us? So with these new questions in mind, we will move into the next message of what kind of structure best answers those new questions.